Welcome to our overview of some of the work we're doing here at Penn State Extension around broadband. We titled this Maximizing Broadband Funding via Spatial Analytics and Stakeholder Education. And I'm Tom Beresnyak. I'm the Client Relationship Manager here in the southwestern part of the state. I have counties mostly surrounding Pittsburgh. And of course, Crissy is here. He's the Economic Resource Development Agent, and he's up in Warren County. And just as a background, this information was pretty critical when we got into this. Estimates were 800,000 Pennsylvanians did not have broadband connectivity, according to the FCC, which is the 25.3 speed that you've probably heard about, the so-called Netflix speed. And at the county level in 2018, 0 counties, not one of them, had at least 50% of the populace with federal broadband speed. So that was an important thing to know going into this. And as an overview of the program, we were looking to prepare Pennsylvania to secure the most possible funding in the FCC's Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, or RDOF, auction in 2020. We were a trusted statewide convener on broadband, and we formed strategic partnerships to do this. One of the most important things in this project was the data is publicly accessible and open source. We were there to enable the bidders in this auction to provide estimates and get the most funding for the areas they were going after. And we allowed legislators and community stakeholders to identify these unserved areas easily with the map. And this is just a little history of how we got into this. That picture that you're seeing there of the group, they were all the rural electric co-ops in the state that we brought together back in 2017. And I do like the other slide. That's my boss there in red, Tara Mondock. She's the Director of Client Relations. And that's Harry's boss on the far right there, Jim Ladley, for Economic Development. A couple of the things we highlighted back in 2017, we were looking into the Connect America Fund 2 auction here in PA. We did a number of farm visits to kind of get up to speed on the needs there at the farm level. Our county commissioner meetings, we had a broadband panel in 2018, along with the county councils in all of the counties that we cover, the 67 counties here in Pennsylvania that have an extension presence. And then we were part of data collection efforts for Dr. Meinrath and MLabs here, and then a number of extension website articles, and then that led to the RDOF project. Just a couple of pictures here of some things that need connectivity that maybe don't come to mind immediately. There's a robotic milker that absolutely needs connectivity. And then there's a computer controlled greenhouse we visited. So just a couple of the ag related things that require that. At the state and local level, one of the absolute key partnerships was the Public Utility Commission work we did in collaboration with them. We did a number of webinars with them, over 194 attendees. The Farm Bureau here in Pennsylvania let us do a podcast interview with them, and a number of counties reached out directly. There's just a handful of them for very specific information for their county to pursue funding, and then the Governor's Advisory Council as well. At the federal level, we were excited to work with the American Broadband Initiative Federal Funding Working Group, the NDEETS, National Digital Education Extension Team, the CORI group, NTIA, of course, and then there was some supercluster ag related technology groups we worked with as well. And stakeholder support. I think this was really a key thing for the position I'm in as a client relations manager. There are 10 of us across the state. We work directly with county commissioners, and they consistently cited broadband connectivity as, if not the top issue, it was always the top 3 issue in their county. The county councils that we presented to had overwhelming positive response to these efforts and helped get that message across. And of course, the support from the PUC, the governor, and the legislature. The key collaboration was the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission. We always want to thank Chairman Brown Dutrill and especially her top staff legal counsel person, Joe Whitmer. The impact of this project was incredible. We received $368 million in FCC funding. That was 7th in the entire country, which was amazing. if you remember before, we had about 800,000 folks without high-speed access. This will bring 327,000 of them access. And it was an incredible score that 66 out of 67 counties will receive funding. Apologize to Northampton. And then just a couple of highlights. We received a nice press release mention from the PUC chairman, highlighting our work with them, and they were excited to collaborate on the project. And then we were very excited to be mentioned in a press release from the governor. I think maybe that's the first time in a long time that that has happened, so we were very proud of that. And then Harry will talk a little bit more about the winning bids and how all of this works. So I'll hand it over to Harry.
Thanks, Tom. So the map you're looking at right now are the winning bids. These are the census block groups that won as a result of the auction that Tom just cited. It's important to note, though, the blue census block groups, that indicates that they won at a level of 100 megabits per second or better. That is now the bare minimum to be considered broadband, or it's about to be announced that that's going to be the bare minimum to be considered broadband. During the auction, that threshold was 25 megabits per second. So it's changed pretty dramatically, and I think you're going to find out it changes dramatically in the future. And the purple block groups, that's gigabit speed. That's actually what I have, and it's great. You can work anywhere in the world if you have gigabit speed. So it's serving a lot of people throughout the state, you can see. So when they brought me in, I mean, I knew something about broadband connections, but most of my work, I use GIS, Geographic Information Systems, for needs assessments. So I'm mostly looking at income data, economic data, industry data. So I had that capability. And in fact, I've ever since I've been an extension agent, I've used it. I've evolved with GIS technology over the years. So this was an exciting opportunity for me, but I had to dig up data. So the Utility Commission I had already been working with these guys, Tom and Jim, long before I came in, and contacted my boss and said, can you, your GIS guy, start creating visuals for us to participate in this auction? And these are some of the early maps. These were static maps that I was sending out to our team and getting feedback from. And what was happening was, you can see they're so data heavy, it was kind of hard to interpret what was there. I was getting cluttered. And again, and you've probably seen a lot of maps like this. This is Pennsylvania's. This is one of our early maps that I developed for the team so they could see who was served and who wasn't. But again, it's a static map. It's not interactive and it's not instinctive. And all of that data is hard to interpret. So I was actually breaking these out by counties, very time consuming, and sending out clusters of maps by counties for people to take apart. But it was very confusing. And if you weren't used to looking at data like that, it was hard to interpret. So then I decided I knew we could develop a portable map. This would allow me to get feedback. You could turn layers on and off. It's not online, but it worked like an online map where people could turn on layers on and off and give me feedback for what they wanted to see. And I could start developing visual data for them to work with to make decisions. And the learning curve is really steep with broadband. I started learning a whole lot of stuff about the technology and its limitations as we went. And Tom was my primary source for that because he's modest about it. He has a lot of knowledge as far as the technology side. And then Joe Whitmer for legal counsel for the Utility Commission was filling us in on the funding sources that were coming and what we needed to know in regards to that. This is actually the modern map. This is what it's evolved to. So you can see I have the new threshold here. You're underserved if you're less than 100 megabits per second, but it tells you who your provider is, how many households are there, at what speed they're providing. So now 90 megabits down is considered underserved. And you can see with the key right there. And there's a whole lot of layers here. We're not going to go into all that, but I just wanted you to see by communicating with one another what the visual demonstration could evolve into by communicating with one another. Because really what we were after is people providing, or bidders at the time, getting the information they needed to bid in that auction. So one of the things we provided for our county commissioners so that they could push the providers to bid was what was at stake by the counties. So you can see if you clicked on Center County, which is where Penn State is, it told you how many eligible sites were in the county and how much was at stake. But we also wanted to engage our legislators. So here we were telling our congressman or our state representative how much was at stake for him or her and how many sites were available. And at the federal level, we were doing the same thing. So here's our representative. We did this by district. If you click on your district, it would tell you how much you had at stake and how many sites needed to be served. And there was a lot of other data we made available to them, and we were doing sessions with them so that they understood what was at stake, so we could get support for our providers. So after the RDOF wins were announced, this is what happened. This is just a short period of time from December 10th, 2020 to December 19th. From the website data, how many visits we were getting for people finding out what they want and where they want it. So it was heavily trafficked right after the announcements. I just wanted to demonstrate. Well, from my end, that's really useful for what we develop into later, because it tells me what people are interested in. So after the auction, we started, so it was very useful, and we're still working with private providers, but then we started engaging public entities as well more, so that they could understand their implementations. So this is just a demonstration of what we were showing the private providers and public entities. These are unserved blocks or unserved structures on roads in our counties. So we put in a layer that showed you, here's your unserved road segments. So right here you have 1,300 feet of unserved road, and there are 7 structures on that road. So for the providers, that's important, because they can calculate the return on investment. But it also tells the public entities like our county commissioners or our public legislators, where they need help. So let me go back real quick. If you click in that box, zoom to, it's going to zoom into a satellite image. It's going to show you exactly where those structures are. So there are 7 structures right here in the satellite. So that's important for providers. They can look to see where the poles are. They can count how much it's going to cost them to provide service. But something else happened in this process. We started talking to private providers and getting data from them. And we're actually doing private work for them. So if they wanted to know something, we would clip out the data that they needed and send it to them. But also they would provide us layers for where they had service. So this is Zeta Media's fiber to the premise service, this blue line that you see here. So this is the exact same view that you had a second ago. This is the unserved area. This is where they have fiber, and they have fiber right nearby. So we can tell people, you might want to call Zito and work out a partnership to provide service to these road segments. So that was important that they gave us this public data, and the largest fiber holder in the state, Crown Castle, gave us their data, and people are providing data every day. So I just added a new layer last Friday on top of that. But something that was interesting to me was, what are people looking at now with the public being aware of these maps? What were they looking at? And it turned out they were looking mostly at low-income block groups. They wanted to know how to serve them, because you can turn on these other layers, who's not served, and where the low-income people are, or where the people over 65 are that might need telemed, or where the students are. Those are all on this map, but this is just for example, because this was the heaviest traffic. So in a 6-month period, I was getting 100 hits a day on low income. Well, that tells me, okay, people are interested in that. What can I develop for low income? So right now I'm looking at our North American industry codes for, what are the employments in the low income blocks, and how can I add that? And what does that mean? Where can we telecommute in these low income block groups? So that, and where can we maybe change our industry density to empty residents, so that they can come in and maybe fill these empty residents with fiber provided service and provide an opportunity to telecommute, if that makes sense. So this is just sort of the way that we're looking at it from behind the scenes. This data is important for us. But really what we're taking away from this project was, by collaborating with providers, by collaborating with local bodies, we were able to provide an evolving map that connected data to the people that needed it. And that's the show.